Hi, everyone. Welcome to an interesting edition of Talking Elite Fitness. I'm Sean Woodland with Lauren Khalil and Tommy Marquez. As is customary with the show, we often plan things out, and then all of a sudden things change, and that's exactly what happened. So what we're going to do is talk about the news that just broke about the locations and dates of the 2024 semifinals. But before we do that, we want to thank our sponsor for today, and that is Strongest. Strongest is an app that you can download right now for free. If you're like a garage CrossFitter, you're looking for a fitness program, this is ideal for you because they have all kinds of options in the app that you can select from. The app helps you attain a higher level of fitness and achieve more goals by reverse engineering the desired end state of each workout and delivering step-by-step training guidance to ensure you reach that end state. It's the only app with personalized pacing guidance that reverse engineers a timeline to guarantee that you achieve a specific goal in service to your training plans, and it's powered by a proprietary athletic intelligence engine. So what's really cool is that if you've seen our stories about this stuff, is that you download the Strongest app, you can go in there and you can pick any benchmark workout. You can pick from a bunch of different just fitness programs that they have on there. You can tell it how you want to attack the workout. So if you want to PR your Fran time, you can say, listen, I want to hit this time and this is how I want to break it up. And it will tell you exactly how you have to do that. If you're watching this live, you can scan the QR code in the upper left-hand part of your screen. It'll take you right there to download the app, or you can head to Google Play or the App Store and check it out. It's strongest.app. If you want to check it out on the web, you can also check them out on Instagram, but download it. It's free. Mess around with it. Let us know what you think, because Matthew Russell, the guy who put it together, is just a workout nerd who's looking for, he is, and he's self-admitted. He's a numbers geek, and he's looking to put this out to the world. And, he wants to know what you guys think.
Every day. Yeah, he's adding more features every day, and soon we're gonna have our own little Christmas benchmark for TEF that we might be doing some fun giveaway stuff with.
There will be no running. There will be no running in that workout.
Yeah, we're thinking like a 12 days of Christmas workout, and there will be. Ain't no one got time for that.
Yep.
No running at Christmas. I already did that for Thanksgiving. I'm not duplicating that for another holiday.
There's no turkey trop for Christmas.
Yep. I met my quota for the year.
It's a Santa shuffle.
So this is what we're going to do. What we're going to do is we're doing this part live because obviously this just happened. After we're done with this, we are going to edit this together with the interview that we did with Don Faul that Tommy and I did on Friday, and we will put that out both separately on YouTube and on audio if you guys want to check that out. But we want to deal with the matter at hand, and that is the locations and dates for the 2024 semifinals have now been released. And I mean, this is something that I've been saying or speculating for a while, and I don't want to get like too pat myself on the back, but I figured that CrossFit was going to get out of the business of running these things, given how much it cost them in 2023. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what we have in 2024. All of these are being hosted by outside organizations. So let's start with weekend number one. It's on your screen. Go ahead, Tommy.
I do want to say something that it is like they are reverting back to outside organizations like running it and hosting it, but they are standardizing the programming across the board. So yes, it is important that it's not, while a lot of the pieces are similar, again, we've kind of taken two different pieces from each of the last three seasons. So 21, 22, where, it was hosted and programmed by those events. 23, where it was hosted by CrossFit and programmed by CrossFit. Now it's hosted by those events, programmed by CrossFit. Everybody's going to do the same thing, which is a slight adjustment. As you can see, some people starting to realize where exactly the California West one is.
So we'll get to that in a second, because that's super exciting. But we'll just
Wex, I'm sorry, but we're not going back to Orlando.
Yeah, too bad. We still have a go-kart race we owe Wex, so maybe
we do owe him one.
I felt so bad about that. Like we were all just gassed. We didn't have time to do it. But Wex, go-kart race, man. It's going to happen at some point. Okay, let's take a look at this. So we're going to start May 17th. We got the Europe semifinal presented by the French Throwdown. That is the LDLC Arena in Dessines-Charpieu, France. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Ooh, nice.
That's 4 years of high school French right there, and that's about as what it got me, right? So tells you how much I paid attention in class. Asia semifinal by the Far East Throwdown. That's at Bexco, Centum City. I'm not even in Busan. That's week number 1. So Europe and Asia. Week 2, May 24th through the 26th. Oceania, Torium Pro is going to host that again at Rafter Arena. And then this is the one right here, North America West semifinal by the West Coast Classic at the Dignity Health Center. And in case you don't know what that is the old StubHub Center. So we're going back to Carson. So that's pretty good.
AKA also the old Home Depot Center.
Home Depot Center, home of the LA Galaxy, right?
Yes.
And temporary home of the Los Angeles Chargers when they first moved from San Diego.
Yeah, I think LAFC also plays there now. But it's also, the campus, part of the campus of Cal State Dominguez Hills. Yep. So I mean, let the going back to Cali memes with Biggie just start flowing.
Oh, yes.
Fantastic. And then the final weekend is May 31st through June 2nd. North America East, presented by the Syndicate Crown. The original email that went out had the location wrong, but they corrected it very quickly. It's at the Knoxville Civic Coliseum, which is where we were the last year, right?
Yeah.
I caught that one pretty fast.
I mean, just come on. It's hilarious that they got the location wrong. And now I get it because that's where it was the first year. So in 2021, we just had the MAC as one of the semifinal events, and it was at the Thompson Bowling Arena. 2022, the MAC and Syndicate Crown went back-to-back weekends. They did it at the Knoxville Civic Auditorium there. So I guess technically both had been hosts, but it's your big announcement. Make sure you get it right.
But to their credit, I mean, it was like a couple minutes later, and the correction email came out. So
yeah.
But
yeah, so it'll be in Knoxville again. I don't know if you want to start digging into these or not, but
then let's the final one. You got North America East again, Knoxville, South America semifinal. That's Copa Sur, which is the same one, and then Africa semifinal presented by the Renegade Games, and that is in South Africa. So you got Rio de Janeiro for Copa Sur. So there you go. May 17th. June 1st, 3 straight weekends of semifinal action. And as Tommy mentioned, all programmed by CrossFit. So we're all going to do the same events, which I love. So
yeah, I think that's honestly the biggest thing is if they went back to, everybody can program themselves. I think that would be a step back where I'm okay with CrossFit not running these events.
Yeah, I prefer it because we get to talk about event records. We get to talk about that contiguous story from week to week. But okay, let's dive into this because in the email that was sent out, and I'll try to put this up on the screen here in just 1 second. They have a few more details, and that is the minimum amount of qualifying spots. So let me see if I can call that up right here. Boop. Hopefully that's the right one. Yep, that is. All right. So here we go. So we have the locations. When you go through this, we'll just go top down. Here we are. Okay. So the Europe semifinal, pardon me, presented by the French Throwdown. 40 individuals, 30 teams, minimum amount of qualifying spots. So this is where they start before we factor in strength of schedule, right? Strength of field, sorry. Still college football in my head. 5 individuals minimum, 8 teams minimum. All right. At the Asia semifinal, you'll get
just 8 teams. No minimum for teams.
Just 8. Sorry, 8 teams, period.
Yep.
Asia semifinal, 2 individuals minimum and 1 team. Oceania gets 3 individuals minimum and 3 teams. North America West will have 5 individual minimum and 7 teams.
I'm sorry. Can I ask a question real quick? Is that supposed to be men and women combined or 5 women minimum, 5 men minimum?
I think it's 5 each.
Yeah, 5 men, 5
Okay.
women.
It'll be 5 each. And then they'll add to that depending on strength of field.
Okay.
Let's see. North America East, 5 individuals, 8 teams. South America, 2 individuals, 2 teams. Then Africa, 1 individual minimum and 1 team. So the teams will not change, which means we got what? 8 plus 1 is 9 plus 3 is 12, 19, 27. So we're going to get 30 teams going to the games. And 40 individuals. So there we go. Thoughts?
I mean, I kind of want to go top down, at least by the events. I think French Throwdown.
They've been hyping up their competition for the past month or so with a new location, and they've been teasing it. But in my head, I was just like, oh, okay, they're changing things up. It looks exciting. But then when did they release the dates? I think they did at the end of this month. Post?
So I spoke with Daniel Chafee
on the 20th.
Last week. He is the former owner and operator of the French Throwdown. He's also the owner of CrossFit Louvre, which is has been one of the early gyms in Europe, in France. They've hosted, everything from open announcements in 2017 to, being one of the first sanctionals. Daniel is the international affiliate manager. He has since relinquished control of the French Throwdown to the rest of his team due to his, his work with CrossFit. And and kind of speaking with him, he didn't give too many details, but he was pumped on the location. And you go look at it; it's in Lyon.
Looks awesome,
and it's a brand new stadium that opened this year. So it's going to be a state of the art, like premier type facility to host this European semifinal. And it's no consolation, obviously, for having two. And I know Europe rightfully wants multiple events, but if you're going to make a marquee event out of one spot, I think this is a great opportunity here. You're going to go to a pretty cool region in France. The weather should be nice, and you're going to have a state-of-the-art facility to compete in, which is cool. And I know, again, still it's only one event, but the event organizers are going to only be able to do as much as they can. And the French Throwdown has been a staple in the European community for a long time.
I don't think there's any shock that Knoxville got selected, given that they were extremely fired up about having the semifinals there a couple years ago. That's when we were at Thompson Bowling. We had Mayor Kane. Mayor Kane showed up.
Mayor Kane,
corporate Kane. Cool. And I know that they were really in on possibly getting the games there as well.
They were bidding. Yeah, they really wanted it. Really wanted it. Good to know that one of the issues a couple of years ago is that it was scheduled during University of Tennessee graduation weekend. Graduation weekend will be during the first week of semifinals, which will be all international. So won't have to worry about that, because that affected hotels, transportation, ticket flights, everything in that realm, because Knoxville is not the biggest airport. They still host massive sporting events, obviously with Neyland and Tennessee football, but I think overall the timing probably works out a little bit better for some people as well.
But that didn't shock me. There was talk. I remember there have been rumors of the West Coast Classic that was going to be the host of the West semifinal, but the location was supposedly going to be Vegas. Like, that was the last I heard. I did not know that they were considering using the now Dignity Health Center for that. And there's some questions here about, does that mean that this tennis stadium is going to be used? Maybe.
That'd be awesome.
I mean, if you can't, I guess you could do it. I mean, it's just, you can run heats of 10 out of there. 4 heats of 10. That's doable, right? I mean, that's
what
at the tennis stadium.
Oh, absolutely. That's what they used to do. Yeah.
So I think I love it. I think this is like just a great kind of hearkening back to the old days, especially as we come up. Like, we're not that far from the 20th anniversary of the games.
That's a good point.
Sheesh.
Right?
Yeah. I'm trying to think, because I mean, we'll be 3 years away.
Well, and I think the next thing that I'm curious about with these semifinals, and this is where I think the tennis stadium could be really cool, is how they're going to schedule these throughout the day. Because there's a way I think you can do it to make it really fit nicely into sort of like a made for TV type of thing. And what I mean by that is, if you we all know CrossFit's trying to save money and find a way to spend their money more efficiently when it comes to these things. And doing a broadcast of 12, 10 to 12 hours can be extremely expensive.
Yeah.
What I would like to see them do is run the early heats in the morning, heats 1 and 2, individuals and teams for every event go in the morning. You take a break, you come back, you have like a 4 or 5 hour window where you do heats 2 and 3 for all the events, or sorry, 3 and 4, the marquee heats, and that's your broadcast. And you use highlights of the earlier heats to show people what's gone on. And I remember last year, Justin Berg at the time was saying, we want to use highlights to sort of bring coverage. And they did that in lieu of showing events live. I think this way you can still show all the events live, but you don't have to have that gigantic broadcast window that just bleeds you of your funds. That would be, I think that would be ideal to get like the most viewers and really get the most bang for your buck.
So since CrossFit isn't running the semifinals, will each competition be in charge of like finding their own means of broadcast and media?
Good question. TBD.
I guess I'm just I'm trying to think of continuous storytelling and if the competitions are in charge of doing that and if we will see similar types of live streams.
I would imagine that. Yeah.
My guess is that there will be some sort of support offered in that capacity.
Seems to be where CrossFit can actually be beneficial, right? Like,
okay,
is the funds for live streaming and some of the interconnectivity between events on storytelling, like the event stuff and like staffing, like most of those events know how to do that already. One thing to note, I think it's I would assume that the tennis stadium is the primary venue. The soccer venue is where the LA Galaxy play. I was just looking it up. They don't release the MLS schedule for next year for another 2 weeks because the draft is on the 19th, 2 weeks from today, and then usually the next day they announce the schedule. But typically they are in season during May. So there may be you may have to like time it depending on the weekend. If there's a conflict with the LA Galaxy, I would assume that weekend there probably isn't. They're out of town, but even still, my guess would be that the tennis stadium is the primary venue and that you can maybe run an additional event or something off to the side in the soccer venue if you need to. Based on what like your agreement with the venue is and not wanting to like tear up the grass.
Yeah. And I'm assuming this is Chase or Bill. But he's, well,
it's one of them.
Like, it would be nice to use both. It would be nice to use the tennis the soccer stadium for an event, but then if it's all standardized, you got to be able to duplicate that someplace else.
Yeah.
Right. So that, if you do this at the tennis stadium, man,
tennis stadium's better anyways.
Agreed 100%. Like it is us. I just didn't know who was behind the keyboard, Chase, if it was you or if it was Bill.
But still, this is cool. That's so cool because there's such a huge contingent. I think the games left Carson in 2015 or 2016. My apologies. 2016. So in the past, 7 to 8 seasons, you have this whole group of new fans and people joining the sport that have never experienced that venue, that atmosphere. They've seen it in videos, and there's this kind of legend that has built around it. And now you get to go experience it firsthand. And I really hope that, and I would assume that if you're going to put that on the docket as your venue, that the West Coast Classic crew, which is Loud and Live, are going to try and set it up in a way that leans into the nostalgia, but also gives it an updated feel.
Yeah.
I've never been to Carson.
You never been to Carson?
That's crazy.
No, my first year to the games was when it was in Madison. I went every year that it was in Madison, but I came late to the party, I guess.
When you talk to people who have been to both venues, and people always ask, what did you like better, Carson or Madison? And they're two completely different experiences. Madison, when you get to the city that the games are going on, because it's all around. You see signage downtown, you see billboards as you drive in, the hotels are decked out. In Carson, you don't know you're at the games until you're actually on the site.
Sure.
Yeah.
because there's so many things going on in Southern California that, you know, they don't care. And the only hotel that is really decked out was the Marriott.
Yeah.
Near Manhattan Beach.
Manhattan Beach Marriott.
Yeah. And that they had all the stuff. But other than that, it was not the all-encompassing experience that it was in Madison. But when it comes to venues, like the Coliseum is great in Madison, but there's nothing that compares to lights on, crowd going nuts at the tennis stadium. And I'm pumped that this is going to be part of semifinals.
I agree. Madison is a better host city. It was a better host experience, but the tennis stadium was by far the best venue. As simple as that. But
well, now we just need to see, you know, broadcast plans, how that, like Lauren said, what's that going to look like? Is each one going to be responsible? I don't know if there'll be some support given or not. And if there's going to be any sort of connective sort of studio show or something like that they do to help tie things together. Cause that's what I think would really bring this all together, is like on these weekends where there's multiple competitions, keep people updated as to what's going on. Like, so if you're on site at one, you can keep up to date as what's going on in the other. If you're watching one, studio pops in, says, hey, here's what's going on. I don't know if they have the means or the will to do that right now, but that would be the next step. But still a lot to be decided here, but we know when and where, and there's a ton to be excited about. I mean, I think you look at the partners, you have people, like you said, Tommy, these guys are used to running events. They're used to running really good events. Wilson Pack and his crew for the MAC. I mean, those guys are great. Second to none. You know, Loud and Live, we all know what they can do. French Throwdown, we're all aware of what that is, you know, what they're capable of doing. So the semifinals are certainly in capable hands.
Yeah, the Torian Pro too, as like those, they have put on an awesome experience down there for the last few years. It's every person who's gone down there for that event has come back, been like, man, this is a world-class event that they do as well. And it should be noted, I think the only international events,
that would be awesome.
The only, I think, was it Asia, Copa Sur, they're both in the same locations. The Renegade Games is going to be in a different location than last year. So that'll be an updated venue. So I'll have to do a little bit of research on that. Although it does say Emerald Resort and Casino, Sean.
That sounds nice.
I think Tommy's going to that.
Well, we talk about the locations. In order to get more butts and seats, it needs to be a destination. It needs to be a driver to get people to want to take off from work, get their friends, get their families, people from their affiliates to go and make it a true experience. And I think with a lot of these locations, they're able to do that.
And I think the next question that I have is that now that these partners are running these events, will we see some sort of local throwdown component to these? It's hard to do.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, like, are you going to have like a separate competition? So back in the sanctional days at the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge, they not only had the elite competition, but they had a community event going on as well.
So I think the French Throwdown is, because one of their posts on here, it says that they do have qualifiers. Like there's a qualifier in January, I believe. Hold on, I got to go to see translation. Registration opens, then online qualifiers, start of online qualifiers, and then the grand finale would be semifinals. So it looks like it'll be a hybrid model for at least the French Throwdown with community divisions.
And look at Carson, you're telling me people would want to go compete on the soccer field?
Oh yeah, same with like when they hosted in Granite Games.
Yeah,
huge community event.
Yeah, so I think like that's another thing that is kind of TBD, but I think would be a huge win for all these events if you can find a way in the limited amount of time that you have to have some sort of community throwdown at the venue. Easier said than done, though.
Sure.
All right. Anything else we want to add to this?
I mean, I love the CrossFit Red Zone idea. You know, be a Scott Hansen.
I mean, I think the big thing that has been missing from these weekends is a way to tie these together, especially on the stream. because oftentimes,
because think about it. At what point did we find out that Guy didn't qualify for the CrossFit Games? It was not immediate.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's like, why wasn't it immediate? That was one of the biggest storylines happening in South America, and we didn't know until like the next morning. It just, there's got to be a way to streamline some of these events and the coverage of what are the big storylines, even just a quick update show of some sort.
Yeah. And if you, I mean, because of time zones, it's always hard to line up. Like that was always a nightmare putting that together. But if you do structure it to where you have your marquee heats going in the afternoon, heats 1 and 2 in the morning, there's a way to do that. There's
some issues with fairness, though, competition fairness. Some significant issues with competition fairness.
Okay, so you think like from a floor standpoint, or just from what?
From both, from a timing and recovery standpoint.
In order to make it to bump up a heat, and I think we've talked about it before, but if
make
you're in an earlier heat, but then you do so well that you bump up into one of the later or more elite heats, and then your recovery time is significantly less than everybody else's, you're never going to make it further, but you're, like Tommy said, at a disadvantage.
Well, if you're in an early heat and you bump up to a later heat the next day, you're actually getting more recovery time.
Exactly, and that's not fair.
Pays to be a winner.
I mean, what about the person that started high and stayed high? They've been a winner more than that person.
I get it. I just think that I'm trying to figure out how CrossFit doesn't look at this and say, well, we can't support these streams because they're way too expensive to do. This is a way to do it that would be relatively fair. There are going to be, recovery time. Sure. I get that. But this would be a way to fit a made for kind of TV event in a window to where you're not, losing your ass on costs and
I
paying
think that's
for a
the line
12-hour stream.
Yeah. That's the line we're teetering right now, is what is the balance of fairness in sport versus growth and visibility of the sport, and where do you dip into one pool to sacrifice the other? Because if you want both of those, neither of them are going to be perfect.
1000%.
Agreed.
And this also begs the question that if that's going to happen, or if that is even in the possibility of happening, this needs to be communicated, right? Because ultimately you're going to need the athletes to sign off on this.
For sure. I'd love to get Brent Fikowski's thoughts on that at the PFAA.
Yeah.
There's definitely, I can see why, Tommy, people would have an issue with that, but I can also see why, CrossFit doesn't want to pay for a 12-hour stream.
Even consider some of the events, maybe like Europe, right? Where there's a possibility of 12 spots going there. Maybe even same thing for North America East. But if you're in one of the heats, say you're hovering in that 19 to 20 area, right? And it's only the top 2 heats that get broadcasted, and you slip up or down, if you go up into that top 20, you get more time, and you are still within 7 spots going into a final day with 2 events. You're more within earshot of making a jump to qualify, and vice versa, even at 21. And you don't get that benefit. But if you went from 19 or 20 to 21, you just missed out on a ton of recovery because you went late into the night and you got to turn around and go the next morning.
Well, define late.
Okay.
I mean, how late did we get out of these semifinals when we were working them?
Well, because a lot of that was like, I mean, if you
production,
I get it, but it is an absolutely valid point that will be discussed.
Sure.
But it's not like they're getting out at midnight and they're showing up at 6 a.m. the next morning. Like, that's not going to happen.
I would feel better about it if CrossFit could be like, hey, this is the plan, and we want to section it this way to make it look like we have this very dense area of coverage, and it's going to highlight the top heats. And this is how we're going to try and mitigate some of that damage. And they have a very detailed laid out plan. I just don't know if they have anything like that, or have any plans to do that, or they even would do that at this point.
This is all just speculation, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay. I have a couple of questions here. So first, how many heats were there at semifinals last year for North America East or West?
4,
was it
right?
Like,
they ran 4 or 5.
Say that again.
Did they run 4 heats last year?
At North America West Vegas, I think they ran 6.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's right. There were 6 heats.
So then how many are they going to be running
because they were able to put 20 people out there.
Yeah. That's why they had the horizontal field.
So if there were 6, is it now cut down to 4 heats this year?
Yeah.
Yeah. Traditional, more standard semifinal.
Okay. So knowing that only athletes that are in the final heat will qualify for the CrossFit Games. And I don't want to be insensitive to athletes from this question. Does it matter if there's less recovery time or more recovery time if it's not impacting who qualifies for the CrossFit Games or where the placement is for athletes at semifinals if that's the end of the road for them?
Say that again?
So what I'm thinking is the only the last heat qualifies CrossFit qualifies athletes to the CrossFit Games, correct?
Not true.
No,
not true. Well, last year if there was 11, then yes, the last
12 or 13.
Yeah, we don't know what it's going to be this year after the strength of field calculation.
Okay, but even so just the final 2. Oh, never mind. Forget my question.
Yeah.
You debunked me from that.
I mean, look, like I said,
ignore the last 3 minutes.
This is all just speculation. They could proceed as usual. But knowing how much money they spend on this stuff and knowing that they are trying to make things more broadcast and TV friendly, this to me is the next step. But there are obviously some hurdles you got to clear here.
But it's also like, how much money are they saving? From not being the primary operator.
True.
Also from not having to maybe shell out as much money as they were in Madison, because by all accounts they got a sweet deal in Fort Worth.
When did they announce semifinal locations last year? I feel like it was much
I don't think
later
it was this early.
It was after the new year.
Yeah, I don't think it was this early.
I feel like it was in around Wadapalooza time.
Yeah.
So there's more heads up this time, which is good, which gives events longer to plan and hopefully get all of that situated.
And for fans to plan their trip, right? Like Wad Zombie brought up that NA West is Memorial Day weekend. Memorial Day weekend in LA. Like,
hell yeah.
That's gonna
be fun.
The nice part about that is if you're going to go to a destination location like LA, there's plenty of options for hotels. There's 4 airports in the area. 4, yeah.
And then Beck said Torium Pro is an hour away from Australia's theme park capital and some nice beaches.
Ooh,
all right,
there you go.
Let's go.
I'll go back to Australia in a second, man.
I've never been.
Neither have I.
It's just the greatest place.
Tommy, we got to get there.
Except everything there wants to kill you, except for the people. And I saw a huntsman spider, and it was the closest I've ever been to fainting in my life.
See, that's where
a huntsman spider.
Oh my gosh! Don't.
I'm gonna Google it.
Don't. I saw one in our Airbnb at Manly Beach, and I almost fainted. It's close I've ever been to fainting in my life.
Oh my god! This is like the Harry Potter movie.
Yeah. Nope.
At least the one in Harry Potter was Hagrid's pet.
But I know.
Yep. Almost burned the whole place down to kill it. So.
Wow.
All right.
They announced semis December 21st last year. Thanks, Wex.
Okay.
Well, I guess they're pretty on par from last year.
Really, I don't care, Ivana. There was one in my Airbnb that had its own congressman, so that was like so
big. that's look. Spiders are like outcomes in Avengers Endgame. You just need one.
Oh.
One to ruin my day. Just one.
Yeah, it was not. Yeah, like I said, closest I've ever been to fainting. You feel that like I just felt the blood draining. I was like, so all right.
Yep.
Are they lethal?
I don't care.
I'm gonna let you Google that. I don't.
Yeah,
really
exactly.
Okay, I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole.
All right.
Overall, if you had to give a grade on the locations for everything, like what would you guys say?
I'll give them a solid A-. And I mean, I don't want to. I think it's great. I think I'm more concerned about the people who are running them, really.
Yeah.
And I think that's where they really knocked it out of the park. I have faith in all those organizations.
Yeah.
I would agree. And I saw a little bit of controversy about in the comments about Knoxville, Tennessee not being east. I think it's east enough.
I mean, well,
I think it's a good low.
If you split the country in half
Mississippi,
and you look at where it sits, it's like,
yes, I think it's east enough. I think it's a great location that can get people out there to have some fun family adventures.
It's a good city, man. It's a good college town.
Yeah.
Julie, that is very, very, very wishful thinking.
Oh, Julie, I love you.
Yeah, not going to happen. If I
Sean,
qualified, it would be an online experience.
You're going to be in a different Masters division.
Yeah, I'm aging up, man. I'm the young guy in the 50 to 54 category. Road to quarterfinals. Stride. We're going to do a documentary. My road to quarterfinals is going to be great.
It's half of it's just going to be him napping in the
exactly. Oh man. All right, yeah. Tommy, what would your grade be?
I actually was going to give him just a solid A. Yeah. Like I think between picking solid event partners, just in the hour or so that I've been able to research some of the locations, I think just from going back to Carson alone, I think this is a huge win, assuming everyone can execute, especially for a West Coast Classic, who's going to try and turn around and run another event in that area in what, August?
Like a month.
Or September?
No, sorry. That's like, yeah, September. So 3 or 4 months, yeah.
Yeah. Ooh, call up Annie Sakamoto.
Oh, yes, and go team.
We have the biggest disparity.
That would be that worm would be ridiculous.
Our combined
Annie and I would die on the worm with you too. You're too tall.
The combined height of our female athletes would be under 10 feet.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah.
The worm would look like a W.
I was gonna say it would look like a yeah. Lauren, what's your grade?
I would also give it an A because all of the things outside of this that I would rate on a scale, at this point, we don't have the information. So when it comes to broadcast, when it comes to ticket sales and the media behind it, those are what I have questions about. Location specifically and getting butts in seats because of the venues and what's around these. I think this is excellent. And how far in advance they've communicated it. Again, excellent.
So one question. Yeah. So we'll have to wait. We'll have to wait for the rule book to come out. So if anyone's just listening, she asked when. Yeah. She asked when we'll find out whether Tia is going to be in Australia or the U.S. for semifinals. She said she'll go to Torian if Tia will be there. So we have to wait for the rule book to come out, which should detail when the application for region change deadline is. In which case, then that will be hopefully communicated for both when the deadline for application and when a decision gets made. Because I think honestly, both Tia and Ellie Turner are probably going to be applying for North America East and West. So we'll have.
And Roman.
Roman would be North America East. Yep. I mean, he got it last year, so I don't see why he wouldn't. Tia might just want to go compete back home. I don't know. I'd have to talk to her, but. There are some athletes that were denied last year, but have another year of being over, either in the States or wherever they're going to be at. So,
all right,
yeah, pretty fun stuff actually. It's pretty good to see at least those locations, man. The West Coast one is going to be so sick.
I can't wait. That's going to be a blast.
I'm going to have some. We're going to have some PTSD from...
It's going to be hot down there, too.
Yeah, under being in the bowels of the tennis stadium at 2 a.m.
Good. Okay, if you're watching this live, we're going to wrap it up here. If you're watching this recorded or listening to it recorded, we are going to now move on to the interview that Tommy and I did last Friday with CrossFit CEO Don Faul. Obviously, last week was a big news week as well with the raising of affiliate fees. So we spent a lot of time talking to Don about that. Talking about what they're hoping to accomplish with the additional money and some of the things that they still need to work on. So again, if you're watching this live, thanks for hanging with us. Really appreciate it. Great discussion in the comments as always. And if you're listening to this recorded or watching it recorded, up next, here's a conversation that Tommy and I had with CrossFit CEO Don Faul. Let's bring in our guest. He is the CEO of CrossFit. He's Don Faul. Don, how you doing, man?
I'm great. How are you guys?
I'm good. I know you've had an eventful last couple of days, and so we wanted to bring you on and talk about kind of what's going on here. And let's just start at the beginning. How did you come to the decision that it was now time to raise affiliate fees to, I guess, for $4,500 for the majority? Is it correct to say the majority or not?
I think it's the majority. I have to double check that, but yeah, I think that's a safe assumption. Yeah. So, look, this started for us, last time we spoke, we had talked about kind of long-term what we're working towards is reaching more people, right? Changing more lives through CrossFit. Ultimately, that's the end goal. And so everything we've been working on over the course of the past year is really in service of that, growth. How do we work on our brand? How do we expose more people, shift some of these perceptions that exist, fundamentally get more people into the front door of affiliates? How do we help our affiliate community make a bigger investment in supporting them so they can do the essential and critical work of changing lives? And along the way, how do we make sure that we can build a really good business and partner with our affiliates in doing the same? And so for us, as we look at kind of where we are today, and we've been sharing a little bit of context on this, taking a snapshot of kind of where the community and the ecosystem is today to understand, the progress that we're making, what's working, what isn't, and where we need to double down. We looked at a few things. What type of progress are we making on the growth front? There's been a lot of actually discussion and chatter about this in the community over the last couple months. We've got the benefit now of, if you guys haven't seen, but Two Brain released their state of the industry, bunch of data from Wodify, from affiliates around the world that gives us actually some numbers behind this. So good news is we're seeing, affiliates are growing users and they're growing revenue. Now that's great news, but they're not growing fast enough. So we look at that and say, okay, it's moving in the right direction, but it's not growing sufficiently quickly. And there's definitely more work that we need to do a better job of accelerating that. That's piece kind of number one. Looking at then broadly the state of our affiliates, probably the last time that we talked, we had probably an affiliate churn of 10, 12%. We were probably shrinking. If you looked at actually the number of active affiliates around the world, obviously that's a really alarming trend. And so that was proximate for us. Like, we got to figure that out. This is the foundation of everything we aspire to achieve in the future. So team's been working really hard on that. We've made great progress. The team has, in partnership with our affiliates, we've got the best retention we've had in the history of the company. We're growing globally. We're growing even in markets like the US, which are the most saturated. That's good news. Flip side of the coin is we know we have a lot of affiliates who are still struggling. And so folks who are active, but are having a hard time. And so in conversations with affiliates became clear, there is more work we need to do in supporting affiliates build, particularly in building a strong, sustainable business. And so we've looked at that and said, okay, if we reflect on where we are today, if we look at where we want to go, what are the things we need to invest in? And so we've shared, there's basically three priorities for us. Continues to be growth. We have a lot of work to do there. We've done some good work. We've got more work we need to do better. So we need to elevate our impact there. Two, we're talking about quality, raising the bar. So we think we talk about it is a different landscape than it was 15 years ago, right? We are a victim to some degree of our own success. We've created this category. There's a lot of copycats. There's a competitive landscape out there today. And we're going to, our thesis is we win in the same way that we've always won, which is not by competing on price. It's not through marketing gimmicks. It's about excellence. It's about that pursuit of excellence. And so we think there's an opportunity to raise the bar, to elevate the quality of the standard. And so we're going to ask that of affiliate owners. That's part of the changes we articulated. We're going to ask more of the overall community, and we need to demand more of ourselves. We need to do a better job on a number of fronts. And then finally, there's the business piece and kind of talking straight up about that. Look, we've talked to a lot of owners. You can't have a sustained impact if you don't build a good, sustainable business, right? You've got to be great at the product you deliver on the floor, and you've got to be a good, strong, small business owner. And same is true for us at HQ. And if you look back at our financials, which, I know we've not talked about a lot historically, but if you look back the last 4 or 5 years, as we all know, there have been ups and downs within the community, lots of changes, and that's impacted our business. As recently as 2022, we were break even. We did not turn a profit. When you look at the financial health of our organization, and how essential that is and being able to do our job in the community and support us, we were not where we needed to be. And so part of that is looking at things as we look at running our business, like pricing, and saying, okay, this is really important. How do we assess this? It's been 11 years. It's been a long time. What's the right price that supports our goals, that allows us to invest? So that really fundamentally is kind of what it came down to.
Mm-hmm. Well, you touched on a few things that I want to jump into before we start talking about some of the areas you've talked about reinvesting in. But you mentioned obviously being at a break-even point basically as late as 2022. Immediately the question comes to mind, well, what happened that caused that? Because you know, by most estimations, even then, there was still a significant amount of revenue coming in. And obviously there's two ways to change that, right? You bring in more revenue or you become leaner and more efficient on the expenditure side.
Correct.
So where was the gap there? And then in that same vein, why does it make sense if there are still a significant portion of affiliates that are struggling that you're attempting to help along? Does it make sense to then charge them more on the front end?
Yep. So on your first question, kind of what's happening there is, as with me, there's no single universal issue. So I'll talk about some of the things that over time have happened. And, I think some of them happened as you guys know, there were a lot of changes in 2019, within the community business that had a really big impact on the company's finances. And so then we had obviously 2020, COVID, number of other issues that had a big impact on the state of our affiliate community. Needless to say, that rippled through the entirety of the business. That had a big impact on the top line in terms of revenue, right? If you break down our business, it's roughly a third of our affiliate business, a third our education business, and a third sport. 2020 COVID hit all of that in a really meaningful sort of way. We took some steps to try to support owners by making some changes on the payments front to support it. All of that has an impact. Mm-hmm. And then candidly, the flip side of the point is our expenses increased. Between 2020, 21, we went from, to a place where we spent more money. And so, as you guys may recall, over the course of the past year, we made some changes at HQ. So we made some changes earlier in the year because we looked at the state of our business and said, you know what? We need to run a little leaner. We need to be a little bit more thoughtful about what we make our investments. Now, in the long run, if I think about the path to us building a successful business, if we look at, hey, we can cut our way or we can grow our way. For us, our beliefs is, if we look at our vision and where we want to be, our path to building a great business is through growth, right? So how do we reach more people? How do we support stronger affiliates? That gets to, Tommy, your second question, which is a good one, which is, gosh, you guys talk about one of the challenges is affiliates who are struggling. Why not lower prices, keep prices low? If we look at the nature of, and the conversations that we've had now with hundreds, probably thousands of affiliates and looking at folks who are in that position, one of the things that we've learned in talking to affiliates and then in talking to folks who work in the space with affiliates, helping them with the financial side, is we actually find that in a lot of cases, for the vast majority of owners, that there's a lot of work they can do to grow their business. That actually the best thing they can do is look at things like pricing, look at things about how they run their business, look at things like their cost structure. We've not done a lot historically to provide a degree of support and education for owners to really look at and think about the cost side of the business, but it's essential. And so for us, this is about an investment. We know, look, and third parties have published this. If we can get you to 150 members, you can take home as an owner 100 grand a year. Now, most of our owners who are there are not taking home 100 grand a year. And so we believe the best way that we can help improve the financial outcomes of our affiliate owners is through an investment in helping drive them more members. So increase their top line revenue through growth and then provide them the business support to run the business.
I'm guessing I don't think I'm going out on a limb here, but that the games and running the game season is the biggest expenditure that you have. Is that
I don't know
correct?
If it's the biggest. I think I'll have to double check. Let's say it's a meaningful investment.
Okay, it's a giant investment.
Yep.
If it's not making money and you guys are breaking even, why is that worth it to run?
I think that's a good question and one that we take a look at and one that we've been talking about and debating. And so I'll separate a little bit. I think it's important to separate the two parts of our sports season. There's
right.
the Open, and maybe even let's take the Open and quarterfinals, let's say. And then there's the in-person side. Semis historically in the games. And as you could imagine, the financials on those are fundamentally different, and as are the goals and I'd say impact. The Open is an amazing thing for the community. And when you look at the cost structure of the Open, it is higher margin. It is a better business for us. If you look at, you guys know this, you can talk to folks in the space, running these events is extraordinarily complex and costly. And so the question for us is, what's the goal? What is the impact, and how do they help us achieve our goals in the long run? And really fundamentally for sport, there are a couple things that you've got to believe. One is that it's a great marketing vehicle for us. It's a way that we can reach people, that we can get eyeballs, and get people into the front door of affiliates. This is a hotly debated topic for sure. And I know there are people who feel really strong and passionate that, hey, lots of stories. I'm sure you guys have talked to folks who said, look, I saw CrossFit the first time on ESPN and I was so fired up. I walked in the gym. There are other folks who will debate and say, gosh, I think it's a distraction. Most people don't care about it, et cetera. We have looked at some of the data on it. And for the subset of affiliates that we've looked at, it looks like we see a 20 to 30% lift in membership in August, if you look at the overall year in and around the games. Now, we've got more work to do to kind of go validate that, but that needs to be true. So we can't just say it's a growth vehicle. We need to make sure and have confidence that truly it's driving people in the front door. The second thing I would say, and love your guys' thoughts on this, is I actually think the sports season, the games and semis can be a really energizing moment for existing community. It gives people the opportunity to come together. It inspires them. Not 100% of our community, but for a lot of owners and a lot of coaches and a lot of fans, it's an awesome opportunity to celebrate this really unique and amazing community. And I think, I've been in this job now for a year and a half. I've got the benefit of 2 games. It's just a really energizing moment throughout the year that I think fires people up, and they go back to their affiliates in their hometowns excited about CrossFit. And so that's the thesis and the bet around the importance of sport. I think personally that we can do more. We need to do more to both get more impact out of sport and do a better job of running the business of sport. And so our goal next year is to do those 2 things. How do we reach more people, inspire more people, energize the community, and run a more disciplined business around sport?
And with regards to sport, where do you think that you guys are falling short the most? I think a lot of people look at, point to big decisions that happen. One, like the coverage of the masters and age groups. Obviously, the choice now to split them off and have them run with independent partners. And I think there are a lot of people that are looking at this, even tying back to this affiliate decision, like, hey, CrossFit is asking for more money. And we even look to something that should be celebratory and almost like a rallying point for the community, and we're getting less here. So where do you think that specifically the improvement can be made immediately, at least in the short term?
Yeah. So as we come back to kind of some of those decisions, let's take the first piece around some of the decisions around adaptive and age group. As we talked about at the time, that's really in service of kind of 2 things. As you guys know, again, running the games itself for just elite and teams is a massive undertaking. And when you add those other divisions, which are incredible and inspirational, being able to deliver that well over a 5-6 day window actually limits what we can deliver in support for those respective divisions. And so we're in a place where we've got to support 500-600 athletes, I think somewhere in that range. And so the thesis there was, look, one, we can deliver if we think about leveraging the games to reach more people, we can deliver a better elite and team athlete experience, really focus on it by partnering with these other organizations that run an incredible event and being a part of helping support them, promote them, get eyeballs on them. We can actually create an event that's customized for those athletes. We can support more athletes. And so there are some trade-offs, but the belief is we can run a better games for the individual and team athletes, and create a better experience for our adaptive and age group athletes as well. And so that's the thesis around it, and kind of what we're trying to support for next year. And we need to, again, across those two goals of kind of growth, does this format allow us to reach more people, drive higher engagement, create a more compelling product to engage with and watch? And does it, support the goals of a really inspirational experience for our community?
You mentioned you're debating something about the game season, and what is that debate over? Is it, should we, meaning CrossFit, should we run the open, run the games, and then kind of go back to what the sanctional model was and like let someone else figure out in between there with maybe a little more structure? Or is it, how do we just better manage costs here?
We're debating lots of stuff, but
okay.
The piece that I was referencing a little bit before was, look, at the end of the day, for us, as we think about, there's a lot of decisions we have to make in and around sport. Those have to be driven by what goal we want them to support. Like, how does this help the community, and how does this help us reach our ultimate goal? And one of those really big assumptions that's really important for us to have a point of view on is, does sport drive growth? Does it get us more eyeballs? Does it get people in the front door of the gym? And I'd say we have a somewhat objective, quantified understanding of that, but a lot of it is kind of gut and intuition still. So one of the things we just have to do a better job next year of being able to say conclusively, the CrossFit Games and the season gets more people in the front door of affiliate. Here's the data that shows it. And then we can build a strategy around getting as much leverage out of that as possible. So that's one of the things that this is a debate that can't be qualitative. It can't be opinion based. We've got to do a better job of getting data. Now, when it comes down to then how we run the season, we have a variety of things that we have to balance, right? As you guys talked about. So there is tension between how many people we reach, how many athletes we support, and how much money we pour into the season. How many millions of dollars do we fund to run these events and structure them and create the overall season? And are we getting the return? Is the community getting the return from that it deserves? We need to be thoughtful about every dollar we spend. The last thing I'd say on this is, I think, being really thoughtful about what is the optimal role for HQ. So on one extreme, should we run every single event globally? I think there was a point at which we ran 17 events at one point. I think
2011, yeah.
I can't even imagine what that was like. Right?
It was controlled chaos. It was
controlled. That's impressive.
I think controlled was being generous.
Well, there's 25,000 people that signed up for the open there, so there was a smaller cohort as a whole.
Imagine running 17 events. So that's probably not the right answer for us. Us trying to run 17 events. Us doing nothing and having no footprint, also probably not the right answer. And so we have the benefit of this incredible, passionate community where folks are psyched and willing to participate in creating these amazing moments and amazing experiences. So part of what we're thinking through is, hey, as based on what we've learned historically, what's the right role for us, and where and how do we partner with folks in the community to deliver these experiences? That is part of the decision around age group and divisional was, hey, we have these incredible event organizers that do an amazing job. Let's partner. Let's allow them to do what they do well. And then our job is to support them in ways that really make sense for them and for the overall community. So, Sean, these are some of the things that we're debating right now. A lot of these questions and details are around, okay, how do we apply our resources and our influence in a way that supports the community best?
And I guess maybe touching on that, I might take a right turn back to affiliates.
Sure.
You mentioned a lot of the things that you listed that got listed in the email regarding, ways of reinvesting. I think a lot of people, the question I've seen more and more, and it happens anytime these major decisions come, is from the casual person who maybe isn't an affiliate or doesn't have firsthand experience is, well, what the hell does CrossFit HQ do for affiliates anyways?
Yep.
And so I would love to hear, like, if you walked into someone that was like, well, what does CrossFit HQ do to affiliates right now? What happens with that $3,000 that you use to support them? What would be your elevator pitch?
Yeah. So I'd say first and foremost, there's the brand. And this is this brand that's been built over the course of the last 20 something years. We actually have gone out over the last year and talked to a bunch of owners And what we hear from them is they attribute roughly 30 to 40% of their new members each year. So depending on the size of the owner, let's call it 10 to 20 new members a year are showing up because CrossFit is on the wall. They're searching for it on Google. They're looking for it. They trust the brand. They've heard about it. And so you do the math on, let's say the low end of that. Let's say it's 10 new members a year at, call it roughly $1,800, $2,000 per member. That's $20,000 worth of revenue in part. And again, the numbers are directional. So number one, you get the value of the brand and the confidence in CrossFit. We are the leader in the category. We created this category. We deliver an exceptional experience. That's number one. Number two are the coaches. Like, we have the best coaches in the industry. We do have requirements around coaching. And we give that member confidence that they're going to walk in the front door and they're going to have a coach that's been trained in our methodology, that's invested in this time, that's going to help deliver these extraordinary results. Affiliate owners are getting increasingly, we've invested a ton. We have a field staff that didn't exist, I think 5, 6, 7 years ago, in regions across the US and a bunch of countries around the world. We're running events. Have you guys been to an affiliate summit?
Long time ago.
Yeah.
So we'll get you on the invite list for welcome. We're doing these. I think we did 40 something events this year. They're awesome. And we want to try to get more affiliates to them. But every owner who I've talked to who has come from these summits talks about how energizing they are, how much they've learned. They're an opportunity for a community to learn from each other. So that's part of what they get. We've talked about CAP. Now we recognize, most of our affiliates don't use CAP actually. They either do their own programming, they use one of the options, but you've got a high quality programming option for free at your disposal if you choose to use it. We've got a affiliate handbook that is, as you guys know, is best practice from a lot of affiliates that you can leverage. We launched a new starter kit for new affiliates, which is, hey, what are the lessons learned about the essential decisions early in your journey? We've had a mentoring program. We have discounts that we negotiate from partners. We've invested a bunch in kind of technology on the website to support that user journey and getting connected with affiliate. And then there's a bunch of work we continue to do in and around the brand and marketing, which is an area we are going to do more next year. Again, that's all about just getting members in the front door.
Can you expand on that at all? You're going to do more in marketing. And I think that's always, that ears perk up when people hear that, because that either means advertising, it either means, more media, but what exactly does that mean if you're able to share that right now?
Yeah, it's all of the above. So we kicked off this past year, if you guys remember, with a campaign called Magic of CrossFit. I think the team did a really great job. Inspirational stories, lives that were changed by CrossFit. So part of what we will you'll see from us in the early part of next year are campaigns that are aimed at shifting perceptions in and around CrossFit. One of the things I think we have to learn from is, I think we have a little bit of a habit of speaking to ourselves, our own community, and our target. We got to find the folks who know of CrossFit. We have incredible awareness, but we've got these misperception issues that have been around for a very long time. It's dangerous. It's intimidating. I need to get fit first. So stories that start to shift those perceptions, distributed through channels that reach folks who are not already hardcore in the CrossFit community, but folks who have not yet experienced it. And so you'll see those types of stories on social. You'll see them through other advertising channels, reaching more people. You'll continue to see work in partnerships. So one of the things that we've done over the last 6 to 12 months for us, when we did sponsorship partnerships, it was historically pretty much predominantly about revenue. Let's go find revenue to support it. That continues to be important. That's part of how we fund the business. But we're also now looking at growth. How do we find partners who have an audience, who have access to an audience that we believe could benefit from CrossFit? And so our partnership with Jocko actually this past year is a great example of that. He's got really meaningful reach. He's an affiliate owner himself. That partnership for us has been a way that we can reach. I think he gets in the neighborhood of 6 million downloads or something. He's got really good reach. What a fantastic way for us to reach that audience. We're doing a bunch of work around, one of the problems we've had is actually today, if you go search for, if you're a casual user who's interested and you come to CrossFit.com, 3-4 months ago, it was actually really difficult to get your way to an affiliate. The website was not structured well. A lot of people would bounce. And so we've been working really hard at how do we convert a higher percentage of people who come to the website with interest into leads that we hand off for affiliates. So we've been doing a bunch of work around testing different formats on the website. We've changed our gym finder, all in service of leads. We've seen some improvement on that front. You can expect to see more of that next year.
Is that all through internal staff? Because I think the general consensus seems to be like CrossFit HQ right now is a considerably smaller workforce than it was in years past.
So we are right now. Not all of it is through internal. We have partners that we work with, as you guys know, some on the media and content production side. We have some partners who we work with on the technology side in the area, although most of that we do ourselves. We are working with a third-party agency on some of our search engine optimization work to kind of but most of the work is done by our existing team. We are now about 150 employees, somewhere around that full-time. A year ago, we were about 200. So we've come down. I don't know the exact numbers. If you guys will know them better than me, probably, but we have come down a little bit again, and really in service of running a leaner business.
There's an ultimate, I shouldn't say ultimate. There's a lot of skepticism out there. Anytime CrossFit talks about when more people are being led into quarterfinals, money grab, money grab. Are you able to say, okay, with this extra revenue, X is going to go here, this amount's going to go here, this amount goes to the investors because they got to get theirs as well.
Yep.
But how do you break down where the new money coming in is going to go to maybe dampen down some of that skepticism that's going to be there, I think, regardless of what you do?
And if you don't, if you don't mind me adding into that too, like what in that response to what would you say to the people that say this is just like right out of the private equity playbook to like just expand, like, let's raise prices, raise rents, get that more money flowing in?
Yeah. So, first thing I'd say on that, Sean, I'll start with your piece, and Tommy, hold me if I don't answer it. So I think the best of the way, so I talked a little bit before, if you buy the notion, and you guys can tell me, buy the notion we have to build a sustainable business. Do you buy that?
100%.
Great.
Yeah.
Break even, not sustainable. Do you buy that too?
Yep. Yeah. That's math. Yeah.
That's math. Okay. So where we were was not good enough. And so for us, and yes, do we have investors who we're accountable to? Yeah, we do. They happen to be private equity owners. Every business, well, I guess if you're privately owned, it's a little bit different. You're still accountable to your stakeholders. But our job is to deliver a financial profile that supports our vision for the community and supports the expectations from our investors and the board. For us, we have to drive revenue, top line revenue growth, and then we need to be sufficiently profitable. Our target is somewhere in the range of 20%, a 20% profit margin, which is not crazy extractive. That is, and you can take a look at that. We want to get to a place where we are driving 20% earnings over time. We were not there next year. We're not going to be there this year. We've got to work towards it. I think at a high level, Sean, to your question, that's the best way. We should read out and we should be willing to talk over time about what is the margin profile that we're targeting that we think is a reasonable balance of what we need to invest to support the business and reinvest in the community. If I was here saying we've got a 90% profit margin and we're jacking up prices, that's a really different conversation. So that's one piece. And then our job is every year, part of my responsibility, our responsibility is we got to go to our board like most businesses and say, here's our budget for next year. Here's where we want to spend every single dollar. Here's the investments we're making in future investments in future growth. Here's the impact it has on our bottom line. Tommy, coming back to your question around, how do we respond to this notion that, this is a money grabber straight out of the private equity playbook? So first thing I would say is, look, like we are a business. We are. And, for us to be around for the long run, we've got to operate this as a business. And part of our responsibility is to, I would say, assessing pricing and making sure that your business has appropriate pricing isn't out of a private equity playbook. I think it should be a standard best practice for any business. And now I think the way that the community, that you guys, that everyone else should hold us accountable is really looking at, we've got this long-term vision that we've articulated that I think the vast majority of folks, even if folks who may not be happy with short-term decisions, would buy into. So if you can look at it and say, yeah, long-term, if we do our jobs well, we are changing as many lives, we're reaching as many people as possible. We're building strong, sustainable affiliates. We're investing in our coaches. We've built an extraordinary brand that continues to speak with authenticity. And so I think the way that we should be held accountable is as we make these decisions, this is part of what we're doing. We're looking and saying, are these decisions consistent? And do they help us get in the long run while satisfying our short-term goals and responsibilities around building a business? And so if you look at something like pricing, hey, does increasing pricing violate our principles? Does it get us off the path of being able to build and support a larger community and build strong affiliates? I actually think it's necessary to support it. But that's the way that I would answer the question. And that's kind of how and our job is to kind of be able to come on, have conversations like this and explain it.
When did the conversation around pricing first enter the fray? I mean, you've been here 18 months. But
honestly, my probably before I started.
Really?
Yeah. And my responsibility in our conference, so it's a conversation with our team and it's a conversation with our board. And my responsibility with our board is to have this strategic dialogue. And very early on, we had a conversation around raising prices. And my strong opinion at the time was no. This is a point when we had high churn. We didn't have, we hadn't made, it was very early in the investments that we were making. We did not have kind of evidence that we were moving in the right direction. And so we said, this is at some point, like any business, this is something we should look at. Now is not the right time. It's not the right thing for the community. And so it started then. And then, our job was to come back and say, okay, this is probably not a decision that we should forestall forever. It's something that we have a responsibility to revisit. Our job is to come back and say, okay, do we believe now is the right time such that this decision will support kind of where we want to get to in the long run?
Would it be safe to say, I know we have you're going to require owners to have an L2.
Yep.
Barrier to entry goes up a little bit. That seems like we're trying to raise the floor. And to me, that says, okay, that's into the battle that you were talking about perception, is that we have all heard the stories about someone going into a gym that maybe wasn't very clean. They didn't know who the coach was. And when they did find out it was, a 20-year-old kid on his or her phone, not paying much attention to the class or anything like that. How do you prevent that from happening, but at the same time allow people who really want to do this and do it well get in?
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there's, one of the things that I think is really important is, look, we talked about this a little bit, these changes. The genius of CrossFit, and part of the genius of CrossFit is our affiliation model. It's unique. Mm-hmm. And it allowed us to attract like these incredibly entrepreneurial, passionate, dedicated owners, and then give them the flexibility and freedom to say, you know what, your community best, you build your business. Now, that's essential, and we've got to preserve that. That is a part of our secret sauce, that if we're going to be successful in the long, it has to remain true. At the same time, from the very beginning, there have been requirements, right? So we think about, okay, there are things that we are going to ask of owners. Initially, it was the L1. And we've looked at that and said, okay, L1 was the initial standard. That was in service of quality. Do we feel like that's the right standard? And so, what we are saying now is we think actually that we need to evolve and change the standard, that the L2 is the appropriate standard. Now in this, yes, we are going to require owners to get their L2, but we're still giving owners preserving a ton of flexibility and autonomy to run their gyms. And so, this is, I will also say, we recognize there are extraordinary coaches who just have their L1. There's no question about that. And there are coaches who have their L2 who probably suck. So there is no perfect thing that we do here that perfectly solves the problem. But by and large, I think looking at saying, the L2 is a great great course, a great experience that is going to make the vast majority of coaches better at their craft and what they do. And so we feel like that investment is a really, really good one for the community.
Yeah. Well, interestingly enough, that's the one thing about the recent announcements I haven't really heard much gripe about. It's almost been the other direction. Like, oh, I wish they would have done this sooner. Like that seems to be the thing that is generally accepted. For the most part, it seems to be like the people that will gripe. Again, price is going to be always an issue, but there does seem to be, and I don't know how to characterize them, but there does seem to be this group, this gray area of affiliate owners that just don't seem to be aware of some of the stuff that's going on, right? 100%. Whether that's the playbook, whether that's business strategies, to whether it's affiliate stuff. And I struggle to identify them outside of, comment sections and things like that. But there does exist of a lot of people that live in their own bubble so much that they don't see the work that's going on. And I'm curious what you guys have thought around trying to reach them or how you can do that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that has been in the last 24 hours, that has, that has been reinforced for me. And seeing some of the comments around, some people even saying, gosh, I didn't even know CAP was free, or that it was available, or how to access it. And so I think, one, it is definitely a challenge and opportunity for us. Like, we got to figure out how we solve this. I think some of it is, candidly rooted for in the early, for 10 years ago, there wasn't a lot there. And, it was, hey, throw CrossFit on the wall, do your thing. Awesome. Folks were psyched. That was the nature of the model. And, as we all know, running an affiliate is busy, and your head's down and you're executing. And the beautiful thing of our community, owners take pride in running their business and saying, I'm good, I got this. And some of it is just changing that pattern and saying, look, we're here for you. We have resources. We have things. You can choose whether or not you want to use them. They're here. So we have to, I think, in part, we just have to shift this perception a little bit and work harder. One of the things that we set as a goal last year for our affiliate team was looking at increasing the touch points we have with our affiliates. What percentage of our affiliates are engaging with something we do? They show up at a summit. They're checking out our toolkit. They're using CAP, and setting a goal for our team of increasing that. So we made really good progress in this over the course of the year. But we got more work to do. One of the things that we've talked about is we've done candidly a crappy job with proactive communication historically, just across the board. We've gotten a little bit better, but gosh, we have so much room. So starting in January, we're going to see a dedicated cadence of proactive updates, strategic updates, tactical updates, things that are changing, things that we're shipping, what the impact is of them. And the hope is we can start to establish this steady drumbeat where our owners expect, hey, once a month, I'm going to tune in because something new's coming and I want to be aware of it.
Will the added revenue that is... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Tommy. No, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say, Sean and I were talking about this maybe a couple of days ago. But even like the consistency of messaging is there seems to be a large cohort of people, just in the CrossFit space in general, that, put a number to it if you want, that have started in the last 5 years, that have never known a world, and at least in my opinion, where CrossFit HQ has had a strong central communication base, right? I firmly believe CrossFit's strong central presence to communicate and put out stuff and engage the community left in 2018 when all the changes happened. Because in the years leading up to that, you can even go back to 2011 to 2014, it was written on the walls of the office to put out something daily, a daily engagement practice. And then that stopped when it almost kind of got decentralized. And now there's a huge part of the community that has no idea that even existed anymore.
I agree. And, I think, what I'd say is you're right. And I wasn't at HQ obviously in 2018, but, I think there were two big things that have shifted in that time, and you're right in I think the role that we need to play. But one, I think the changes you shared had a really abrupt impact on that. I think that the second thing that has changed is subsequent to that, we now have a lot of other voices within the community outside of HQ. Actually, like you guys, folks who have stepped up and are filling that in a way that is, I think, great for the community. That doesn't mean though. So I think the new model can't just be HQ. It needs, but we need a bigger presence. And I think we need to figure out, and this is an area where actually the last time you and I chatted, we talked about this. We still have a role to play in setting the tone and communicating a vision and the path forward and complementing the work that other folks in the community are doing. And so that is an area where we're part of what we're doing on it's not the entirety of it. So a lot of the work Nicole has been leading on the brand side will support moving forward how we're thinking about that. Our effort that we're with kind of a new content campaign going into Q1 aimed at shifting those perceptions is part of that. But I think there's also the important speaking to our affiliate community directly. I think that is the, arguably the most important constituent we need to speak to really clearly and really regularly, where there'll be the steady updates and there'll be the inspirational stories, but there'll also be, hey, here's what's coming and here's the direction and here's what we're doing and here's what you can expect and here's how we can work together on it.
When we talk to you next time, whether it's 2 or 3 months down the road, what are the things that you hope to be able to say, okay, this is what we said we were going to do, and this is what we did, and here are the examples of what we've been able to accomplish in a short time?
Yep. So let me start on the growth side. So we talked about those priorities. So on the growth side, let's call it 3 months out, maybe 4, we'll buy a little more time. I hope you can look and see that those stories, that the stories that we're telling are addressing head on. People look at them and say, that is who we need to speak to. So it's the potential new audience, and they're tackling head on the perceptions we need to shift. And we are figuring out, we won't be 100% done in obviously in 3 or 4 months, but we are reaching those people in new and creative ways. We're leveraging the channels that have worked for us in the past, but we're also really thinking hard. It is 2023, not 2015. We have learned how to reach people, how to reach our audience in a new way. So a bunch of things, piece around kind of growth. Also say we're doing a bunch of work now, continue to do work on the technology side around SEO. So how do we convert more people who are searching for CrossFit? We have way too many competitors piggybacking on our brands. In 3-4 months, want to be able to say we've made progress on that front. So we are doing a better job of connecting with our consumers who are looking for CrossFit and leveraging tools like search to be able to do that. We'll continue to work on investing in things like giving our affiliates access to, this will be early, it's going to take us some more time. We have a lot of owners, many owners who do local search, local marketing. We have a lot of owners who say, actually, that's a lot of time and that's complicated and I don't have time for it. We know it can be really impactful. So we are starting work now to identify how do we make that available to more owners. On the educational requirement side, I hope to say we are seeing aggressive scheduling of L2s, and we've seen meaningful shift in the percentage of L2s, which gives us confidence that the experience that our existing and new members are having inside their affiliates is that much better. I hope to say that the continued investment that we're making in communication, that affiliates say, gosh, we have a clear understanding of what's coming. We understand what we're working on. We understand the impact. Let's see what else. Look, and on the business side, I don't think we're going to be there in 2 to 3 months. This is going to take us more time. But one of the things that we are tracking is we're going to continue to look at how do we help our affiliates grow members and grow revenue, and ultimately grow their take-home economics. So we won't quite be there in 2 to 3 months. It's going to take us time. But what I'd love to say actually a year from now is that we've meaningfully increased the average revenue for affiliates. And in large part, we've done that by helping them with new members. We've increased the average number of new members they've seen each month. And the average affiliates, when we look at how they run their business, they're taking home more money. So on top of revenue increasing, they're actually making changes that allow them to put more money in their pocket or invest more money in their coaching staff.
I have a question that we may have touched on a little bit, but I think it actually digs into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts of what happens when CrossFit decides to communicate with people. And this is a question from one of our patrons, Kurt Fishin. So I think is a military guy. He says, what is CrossFit's PACE plan for communicating with affiliate owners and outwardly in the community in general? And I didn't know what PACE meant, primary, alternative, contingency, emergency, and how does that flow?
Ooh, I thought it was about frequency and timing. So I'm not exactly sure how to answer the question, but let me start with frequency and timing and then ask me follow-ups if there's other details. So
Sure.
we're going to start with, I think we're going to start with a monthly cadence in Q1. So every month we'll provide an update to our owners. We're going to probably do some sort of streamed piece. We'll record it and then we'll distribute it for owners. We're also looking at some other mediums, looking at a podcast broadly. We haven't invested as much recently overall company podcast, but there's more work we want to do there around the brand, and then looking at some things specifically tied on the affiliate side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it seems more so like just like that fits kind of the primary. And then I guess what are the contingency and emergency plans for communicating when stuff does come up? Because I think,
gotcha.
Yep.
So that's a good question. So I'll interpret that to say, okay, we've got this primary means, but what if folks have questions or issues that we're not addressing proactively? What's the means by which? So we've actually got a fantastic field staff and team who are spending every day right now, spend a ton of time interacting with and engaging with affiliates. And so for any affiliate who's watching, if you have a question, an issue, you need support on anything, you've got a regional rep or a country manager and a whole team here at HQ. They're quite busy over the last 24 hours who are just here to support you. And that could be about anything and everything. We're there to support you. We have, and I would really highly encourage you, if you've, please give one of our summits a shot if you haven't been there. They're awesome. And again, the response that we've heard from owners who show up is overwhelmingly positive. And that's a great catch-all as well, to just catch up on stuff you may not have been aware of, talk to other owners, get advice, share some thoughts on stuff. So those are really good, I think, backups and kind of redundancy around how we communicate and support owners.
Mm-hmm. Where are you guys in finding a title sponsor for the games?
We're making progress. We have no announcement ready. I will say we are very fired up and we're close.
Okay.
It's gonna be awesome.
I only have one more question, and I think it kind of touches on just reiterating some stuff that we've already said in the past.
Yep.
It seems like a lot of people aren't aware that there is adjustments on pricing based on where you live or what your economic buying power is. What does that kind of breakdown look like, and maybe in broader terms? Because I've had a few people ask me, like, why isn't there a sliding scale of sorts? And I'm like, there kind of is. But
yes, yeah. So we historically, I won't get all the specifics perfectly right, but we had kind of our base highest rate, and then we would look at, I think, countries around the world and do some sort of discount associated with that. It had been probably too long since we took a hard look at that and assessed, hey, are those adjustments appropriate? At the end of the day, we are trying to solve for the same thing. How do we figure out the optimal pricing that supports growth and investment, given the unique realities of every country around the world? And so what we did as part of this analysis over the last 6 to 8 months was we looked overall at what we think the appropriate level of investment was. And then we did an analysis of all of our countries and regions around the world. Since we looked at a variety of factors from cost of living to average cost of goods and services in respective markets, GDP, et cetera. We looked at how other companies handle things. We also wanted to take a step to simplify things. I think previously we had a probably hard to follow long list. So we have moved now to, we have 3 tiers. So we have 3 separate, we have our 4,500, we have 2,500, and we have 1,500. And actually there are many countries around the world where we actually decreased prices. We dropped prices because we looked and said, you know what? The historical pricing we've had here is too high, and it's actually suppressing growth, even for affiliates who do an exceptional job where we drive it. So particularly in South America, in Africa, in parts of Asia, there are countries the price has gone down.
Interesting.
My final question is this. There's been a lot of talk and debate in the community amongst different people about, is CrossFit dying?
Yep.
How would you push back against that, or maybe just reframe that argument?
Yeah, I would just say, well, my interpretation of is CrossFit dying is, are we shrinking? Are fewer people doing it? And actually from the recent data, we know that's not true. So, we can look at, that was really encouraging to see. And again, this is the two-brain data from Wodify looking at affiliates globally. In almost every single region, affiliates are growing in terms of members and they're growing in terms of revenue. I think this all kicked off with one article that led to a bunch of follow-on conversations. My sense also, you guys will tell me, is this is a conversation that happens periodically in the community. Is that fair or no?
I mean, it probably happened back in 2018. I feel,
yeah.
you know,
look, and
it's the first time.
Yeah. And I think it's a reasonable question to ask. So what I would say is, look, the data tells us, you know, one, we're not shrinking. Actually, we're growing. It also tells us we're not growing fast enough. And, you know, when I look at, again, like we look at CrossFit today and what it can do for people, if we look at like what I think are addressable audiences, it's a heck of a lot bigger than where we are today. There are way too many people who could benefit from CrossFit who have not given it a shot yet. So it's not dying, but like we can't sit on our hands. We can't rest on our laurels. Like we are not growing fast enough. We as a community and starting with us, we need to be willing to make some changes. We need to be willing to like focus on what got us here and stay true to that, but also be willing to make some changes in how we reach people, right? In how we structure things, in raising the bar so that we can grow a heck of a lot faster. Like a year from now, if there's only one thing that has changed, more people doing CrossFit, meaningfully more people doing CrossFit is the most important thing. And we've all got to do that. That's us. That's the affiliate community doing that together.
Well, Don, really appreciate your time. Thanks so much for coming on and answering the questions. I know you've been taking a lot of fire from a lot of different directions, and just appreciate you being willing to have the conversation. And best of luck moving forward, and looking forward to seeing what's on the horizon.
Well, thank you. Thank you guys so much for having me. And I'll say, yeah, there's, you know, obviously we know anytime you do a pricing change, you know, there's going to be reaction and concern. And I know for some owners, it's hard. It's also been really cool to see there's been a lot of folks who have actually reached out and said, you know what, get it. This is the right call. Like we're running a business. We've got to be able to invest. And so appreciate those sentiments as well. So thanks for having me on and asking me the hard questions. Like we need to be able to answer them and have this conversation.
Let's get into PRs and no reps. We always start with, we like to end on a positive. What no reps do we have here?
That was professional, Sean.
It was so professional.
Yeah,
I have a no rep.
Go ahead.
People mentioned this in the comments, but I actually had it listed as my no rep. I'm going to no rep the CrossFit Games team for their lack of support of the wheel log games, at least from what it seemed like.
I was a little shocked that I saw a couple posts.
I saw one post.
Okay.
On CrossFit Games, I didn't see any.
Maybe I'm being
there.
generous.
Yeah. I saw one post on their feed. I just think that here's an opportunity you have for a new event partner that's going to be hosting the games, like to show some support in them with, you know, posts and things like that. And they got one. Yeah,
there's one.
Okay.
So
that's just disheartening, to be honest.
Yeah. That's a no rep for me. Let's hope it improves.
I would agreed. Yeah. Because you're going to need to show a lot more support for that competition in a little less.
They deserve it. They deserve
100%
it.
They deserve it. They absolutely deserve it. Lauren, you got a no rep?
No. I'm going to be positive today.
I'm going to no rep the Philadelphia Eagles for their absolutely. I'm no repping the Eagles for their no show last Sunday and just getting thugged down by the San Francisco 49ers, who are clearly the juggernaut of the NFL right now.
Oh man,
that was a beatdown.
I was so conflicted that game.
I know you were.
It's my two least favorite rivals in sports.
Two awful fan bases. Just yeah.
But Lauren, when you were thinking about your no rep right there, you could have like done a super zoom into your brain, and it was like, you know, like it was like a battlefield in war going on. And you're just like, nope, nothing. It was like, should I go nuclear on this? No, I'm good.
Oh, inside my brain, it's like a nuclear destruction happening. But what you see here, We're going to keep the positivity.
Yeah. Shout out to the Leon of Detroit.
Yeah. Your no rep leads into my PR. All
right. Do it.
Mine?
No.
You didn't have a no rep.
I know. That's what
on for the Eagles. I'm going to PR Italians.
Oh, they're having, yeah.
Italians are having a moment right now because on the sideline so first off, Nick Sirianni, who's the head coach for the Eagles, the most Philly coach ever, by the way.
Yeah, Philadelphia was a person, it would be Nick Sirianni.
He wears the Italian flag on the side of his Eagles hat, and in honor of his heritage. But the Eagles chief of security, Dom de something.
I know the guy you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. Everyone calls him Big Dom, this gigantic Italian guy. During the game, Dre Greenlaw basically reverse suplexes Devonta Smith into the sideline pretty late, maybe a little excessive. Scuffle starts to ensue. Here comes this big old Italian man just separating the two. He gets in there to kind of separate things up. Now, whether or not he should have been there in the first place is a valid point, but he was like breaking it up. And then Dre Greenlaw like gets in his face and like throws his hand at him. I wouldn't necessarily classify it as a punch because if that was a punch, that was pretty weak. It was like this weird, like, I need to put my hand in your face and I'm not sure if I want to hit you or not.
It's like a face wash in the NHL, just like, whatever. You know?
Yeah. And Dre Greenlaw gets booted. Dom gets booted, but he instantly becomes like a Philly legend as this.
We're going to build that statue right next to Rocky.
Yeah. This gigantic Italian man just standing up for the Eagles. And like all these stories have been coming out. People have been super cutting highlights of his work on the sidelines. And I mean, that guy is never going to have to buy a beer in Philly for the rest of his life.
No.
So, yeah.
Lauren, PR.
Okay, now that I'm thinking of it, this is like a half PR, half no rep because I'm going to no rep the fact that Taylor Swift's team couldn't win on Sunday, but I'm going to PR the Packers because that is my team. I did want Taylor Swift's team to win because Taylor Swift is king, but good job, Packers.
All right. You know what? I'm going to PR going back to the tennis stadium.
Oh yeah.
That's a huge win. Love it. Yep. Can't wait to see that. I mean, I hope they do. And knowing Loudon Live, they're going to have some sort of homage to those days. Fire off some fireworks, before you do an event under the lights, like something. There's going to be it's going to be a show, and I cannot wait to see that again on the floor. And I think it's really cool for a lot of competitors who started their games careers after we left, who are going to have a chance to maybe compete on that floor. I think it's big win. I'm going to PR that.
I would love to see Amanda 45 programmed as the opening workout for all semifinals.
All right.
And you get to have it on the tennis stadium as the updated version of the first ever workout that was done on that floor back in 2010.
That would be cool.
Super cool.
That's good stuff. And then we just have Jason Cleva come out and just punch a jib operator for
basically just throw a barbell
at somebody.
Just dissect the jib.
Yep. All right. Well, that's going to do it. A lot to talk about later on in the week. Lauren, you're actually going to be at FitFest in the UK. You leave tomorrow. Well, today's Tuesday. Yeah. So you leave tomorrow evening on a red eye.
Yes, a red eye Wednesday night. I get in at like 8 a.m. UK time on Thursday. And I will be with, I just got confirmation that on our show on Friday, we will have manager Snorri Barron and BKG on our show, kind of previewing FitFest. So that will be really fun.
Fantastic. Right. Usually record that on Thursday. Yeah. Bring those guys in. I don't think we've ever had BKG on the show.
I have reached out. We have coordinated with him to be on the show like 10 times, and every single time something's like popped up or fallen through. And
he is sharing an Uber with me. So that man is getting on the show.
Just handcuff yourself to him and be like, come on.
You will not leave until I get you on the camera.
Awesome. All right, guys. Everybody hanging out live, thanks so much for being here. Appreciate the comments. Appreciate the discussion. Thanks again to Don Faul for joining us last week. Enjoyed that discussion. And again, if you're watching this live, that'll be a part of the recorded episode. So that's it. Lauren, have a safe trip over to the UK. Tommy, I'll talk to you soon. Yep, everybody, take care of each other. Be better. And we'll talk to you guys next time. Yeah.